I know you're in favor in small government for a lot of issues. I know that drugs are a big issue in America. I was wondering what was your perspective on recreational drugs in general, the legalization of drugs, and just what your perspective on that was?
Sure. The mass legalization of drugs has been a major mistake in our country. I used to be for it, and I've had a 180-degree reversal, and I'll tell you why. I believe in a small but strong government with prudent and effective and, let's just say, common sense laws. I used to be one of those guys that was a conservative that said, if we really want to reduce government and make the cartels weaker, let's legalize weed, and that will really make the cartels weaker, and then we'll have less people in prison. Everything I believed was completely incorrect. Let me tell you why. As we've legalized weed, especially in the American Southwest, we've seen more violent crime, not less. The cartels are wealthier and stronger than ever before. One of the arguments was, well, kids now are going to be able to not do harder drugs. That's not true. Kids are now getting into fentanyl and harder drugs earlier because whether or not we want to admit it, marijuana is a gateway drug. That is a true fact. Kids don't just start with fentanyl. They start with marijuana and it goes to other drugs, and we see that happen time and time again. So actually, I believe that the decriminalization of weed has been something that actually makes government bigger. We now need more social workers. We now need more services. We're now giving more people things on welfare, money on welfare. And so while I understand the spirit and potentially the principle of legalizing or decriminalizing drugs, we have to look at the evidence. And the evidence is that we live in a sadder society, a more depressed society, a more anxious society, a more violent society, the more that drug use has gone up over the last decade.
Can I ask a follow-up question? I was wondering if, in what ways, you said that the cartel has become stronger with the legalization of marijuana. I was just wondering, like, what are the reasons for that?
Yeah, so they're no longer in the business of growing weed in the Sinaloa region, so now they traffic fentanyl in people.
Okay,
much more profitable and much more dangerous and murderous. So we basically told the cartel, stop trafficking the thing that actually wasn't as bad. It's bad, okay? And now they've gotten into really rich business where they get $5,000 a head when they traffic them across the Rio Grande Valley and they're doing $5,000 a day. Or they get fentanyl trafficked in from China that this much of fentanyl, like a salt grain of fentanyl, will kill your grandkid almost instantaneously. And so now the fentanyl is, the cartels are bigger and stronger than ever before. They're more brazen and bold than ever before. They're kidnapping and killing Americans. They're controlling the entire Mexican government. The border is now completely controlled by the cartel. And we were told that drug legalization would make the cartels irrelevant, the same way that the legalization of alcohol made the mob less powerful in the 30s. That was a lie, by the way. The mob just went into a different business, okay? It's not like they stopped committing violent crime, and it's just not true. The cartels are running the entire southwestern part of the border and many parts of the southwestern United States.
Last follow-up question with that. I see your point that the legalization of marijuana has increased drug use and has increased the demand for things like fentanyl and heroin and stuff. I was wondering, I guess, like, why is making things like alcohol illegal, but making things like marijuana illegal? Why is alcohol more acceptable than marijuana, for example?
I mean, look, I'm not exactly a big fan of alcohol. I actually think alcohol is a really bad drug, and we overly glamorize alcohol in our society. I think we do some good to actually limit alcohol intake. I think it would actually make people's lives better, and I think we've waived or socialized drinking in our country. Now, that's a separate argument, though, because that's making something that's currently legal illegal. We're talking about making something that's illegal legal, right? So those are two separate things. But if you were to say wave a magic wand and people would drink less in America, I'd say sign me up for that. Because, I mean, if you look at the amount of DUIs, violent crime, if you look at domestic assault, alcohol is almost always involved, almost always. So I would say this, right now the question is on marijuana, and it has been proven right now to have massive externalities that are negative. Over 70,000 people died of fentanyl overdoses last year, right? And over 140,000 people die from the effects of alcohol every single year. Now, I'll be the most unpopular public commentator on the planet to argue for a ban or an abolition of alcohol, but let me just say this. Someone needs to have the courage to say the amount we drink in our country is bad for us, and it's making us deeply unhappy.